All right. Greetings and welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. How y'all doing? Great to see you. Thanks for joining me on these here interwebs. We are live on YouTube, Rockfin, Callin, and Twitter. And people are coming in to the chats and whatnot. Rockfinners, hello. How you doing? I told you I'd be here at 1. Here I am at 1. I did not have the difficulties today that I had yesterday. So I like to be able to make it at the appointed hour. All right. Let's get into it. Pretty big news. Poppy sent me this from Leon Simons. This should be breaking news. Daily global mean temperature 2C above pre-industrial for the first time. I guess this is officially acknowledged 2C. I know, but people tell me all the time in the comments, we're already at 2C, we're already above 2C. And depending on what you're looking at, how you're looking at it, what baseline you're using, there's a whole lot of ways to slice and dice the data. And I wouldn't be the one to say, no, we're not. I wouldn't doubt you. I wouldn't debate you. But we're just going on what's officially recognized. So that's what we're talking about. When I say 1.5 or 1.7 or 2C or whatever, I'm trying to kind of, cover the officially recognized base, and we know that there's kind of a broad variable in there. That's okay. But what I guess, the official people who track this stuff and put the data out there and report on this stuff and tell you what's going on, according to the official folks, we're at 2C, or we touched 2C. We're not at 2C. We touched 2C for the first time ever. Anyways, Leon Simons goes on to say, confirmed by other data set, also need a bigger y-axis. Of course, there are disclaimers, but this is an important preliminary milestone. We might reach the monthly 2C anomaly next year, a monthly anomaly. By the time we get to a monthly anomaly, we're pretty much there. If you can sustain that for a month, you're pretty much there. But this comes one day after the possibility that we could hit 1.94 or whatever it was. One day after that declaration. Okay, so one disclaimer. Over the next week or two, the global mean temperature anomaly is likely to reach briefly almost 2C. So this is a might reach. We didn't actually touch, but we're awful close here. I'll have to show you the graph. Hold on. Well, I want to just keep on reading headlines. So we'll come back and we'll look at the graph. We're awful close to 2C. There's been a prediction for 1.94 in the next week, and now that prediction is changed to 2. So, did we actually touch the 2? It doesn't look like it. It looks like the prediction is in the in the experiencing of the next weeks. Okay. Horrendous flooding in Davao del Sur province in the Philippines is being reported. This isn't your normal rainy season. Major floods due to heavy downpours in Estrée of Pays de Calais, excuse me, in France. In the France is how they wrote it. From today. Heavy flooding. Jeff Berardelli. Excuse me. Jeff Berardelli says, we show that 77% of the burned area in extratropical intact forests currently stems from lightning. 77% of the burned area, and that these areas will probably experience 11 to 31% more lightning per degree of warming. So he's talking about the cause of forest fires and the cause of, a greater cause of forest fires in the future. Doesn't that make sense, though? That you would get more, if there's more water vapor in the air, there's more storm activity in the air, there's more energy in the atmosphere, in the system, it would make sense that you would get more lightning. So that doesn't seem like a, for all you HAARP ray people and geoengineers, it's not really like a big stretch to say that there could be more lightning causing more fires. Moving over to some other news, Spiro Ghost retweets Christine Lagarde announcing the launch of EU's central bank digital currency, the digital euro, which will enable unelected technocrats at the ECB to program how, when, where, on what, and by whom it can be spent. Including the imposition of social credit, carbon allowance, vaccine passport systems. And despite the lie that cash is here to stay, you can be absolutely certain that the megalomaniacal technocrats such as Lagarde have every intention of gradually phasing out cash altogether. Well, they already are doing that. They're limiting how much you can spend on things, how much cash you can take out of the bank, et cetera, et cetera. But Spiro retweets this and says, another conspiracy theory proven to be true. And it is true. It's not just a conspiracy theory. Revolutionary Blackout Network reporting on this today. Out of Michigan, Michigan Muslim leaders pledged to abandon Biden regardless of the consequences. Activists say they can no longer re-elect a president who did nothing to save thousands of Palestinians. Revolutionary Blackout Network says not only are Muslim Americans abandoning Joe Biden, Muslim leaders in Michigan are actively campaigning to get people to leave the Democratic Party. Democrats really destroyed their party by nominating and supporting Genocide Joe. It's going to be hard for the Democrats to bounce back from this one. Because again, as I said the other day on my social media feed, people are done. People are over it, over Joe Biden and over the Biden administration and over it all, over the Democratic Party, period. So I'm sure, and I know there are plenty of hardcore, or maybe not even hardcore, maybe there's plenty of people out there that are like, well, it's the best that we got is the Democratic Party. But there are a lot of people who are over that, who have moved on from even that sentiment and are like, nope, the Democratic Party is actually very, very destructive. Not good people. Not people I'm going to vote for or put my faith in anymore, regardless of how bad the dude on the other side is. And I think that's a healthy place to be. Claire Daly has a good video out. We're going to come back and watch this video, but she says Israel has spent a month pounding Gaza into rubble and filling the streets with children's blood. With European and American weapons and European and American support. still, Evelyn von der Leyen cannot even say the word ceasefire. This isn't just Israel's genocide, it's Europe's too. Ursula von der Leyen, excuse me. And Caitlin Johnson says Biden could end this whole thing with one phone call. With one phone call. Anyone who tells you otherwise is either lying or ignorant. This mass slaughter is happening because Washington wants it to. And I just showed you yesterday. Somebody asked Joe Biden whether he was whether there was a chance for a ceasefire, and he said, nope, no way. She goes on to say, when Israel cut off Gaza's communications, Washington called and ordered them to reverse it, and connections were immediately restored. They can end this assault just as easily. Don't let the White House frame itself as a passive witness to this butchery. Going back to this just briefly, some people said that this was not a climate protest yesterday, where the guy Darlington shot 2 people in Panama. Just to give a little clarification on this, someone said these are not environmental protesters. There have been mass protests across Panama for weeks against alleged government corruption in the granting of a huge mining contract to a foreign company. It's kind of, it's kind of splitting hairs there. Sure, they don't like the government. Maybe there are several issues involved in this. The contract represents a significant percent of Panama's GDP. These 2 murdered teachers were murdered by a dual national who was born and lived his life in Panama. Right. So, anyways, I think that there could be many things people are protesting against, right? They don't want the mine. Mines are inherently dirty and polluting and destructive, right? So there could be several things going on. It could be corruption, and also people don't want environmental destruction as well. I don't know if they're just, I don't know that anybody's like going, ham on trying to make this, they killed some environmental protesters. But here's the thing. Again, they kill environmental protesters all the time in South America. They kill environmental leaders all the time in South America. This is a thing that happens all the time. And it's never like blasted on the news and people don't, oh my God, how could they, they actually just kill these people. They do. And nobody seems to be, getting all uptight about that. So, if you're trying to make it seem like, they're just trying to make it seem like they're killing environmental protesters, and no, they are. They are killing environmental protesters. They do it like every week. And nobody talks about it. Nobody reports on it. All the telling you the truth about stuff. People never report on it, never tell you about it. I don't know why. It's news. Anyways. This is an interesting video. We'll come back to this. Climate protesters interrupted Jerome Powell's speech. And he said, just close the effing door. Roger Hallam says, a week does not seem to go by without flooding events, which are once in 100,000 year probabilities. Yeah, every single day. Like, it's not a week. Every day. Every day. I just told you about 2 floods that were happening. Major floods that were happening every day. The thing to remember is this is how it will be, and much, much worse for the next tens of thousands of years, such as the criminality of drilling for more fossil fuels. And he is actually retweeting a major flood happening in Kenya. An entire town is underwater due to flooding in Elwak, Kenya. The humanitarian situation is critical, with thousands requiring life-saving assistance in the form of food, water, and access to health care. They're trying to hype up this environmental stuff, man. Doomer Girl News. An analysis of beeswax in managed honeybee hives in New York found a wide variety of pesticide, herbicide, and fungicide residues, exposing current and future generations of bees to long-term toxicity. Duh. Steve Austin says doubling CO2 levels leads to a temperature change of 5+ degrees Celsius. We are close to doubling CO2 levels today. We are close to doubling CO2 levels today. So 4C to 6C. Yikes for us. He's reposting Sir David King. Who's talking about a piece from James Sands? We'll come back and we'll talk about this. Another video I want to show you. Let's we'll kind of go through the headlines, and we'll work our way back through some of these stories. Let's see. We have Nico House talking about Israel admits to killing its own civilians with indiscriminate Apache helicopter fire. Kim Iverson was talking to Scott Ritter. He's saying the CIA is working with CNN to create a documentary that's designed to shape the opinion of American people. Thanks, CIA. Anomaly posts this from the AP. UN says new polio outbreak in Sudan caused by oral vaccine. And Anomaly says they put out headlines like this and then call you a conspiracy theorist for suggesting that every vaccine isn't amazing. It's like an IQ test for the masses. Indeed. In New York, there's a polio outbreak that's being said to be caused by the administering of vaccines. Vaccine-induced polio. Oh, it's happened in India. It's happened in Africa. It happens all the time. Why is it happening? Or why is it allowed to happen? I don't know. That's a good question. All right. So let's we already kind of talked about this quite a bit, but we'll show. I want to show a couple things from this post. Anyway, so Leon Simons talking about daily temperature 2C above pre-industrial for the first time. So this is a forecast of 2C, not an actual. I just want to clarify that because I don't want to put out anything that would be a false statement. So we might reach 2C. 2C is in the forecast. Forecast for next week, okay? So he's saying, I don't know if you guys can see this. This is a forecast for the next couple of weeks. I don't know why this isn't really. Anyways, it's important to understand that a large part of it is weather variability. The climate has warmed 1.2 C. No, sir. But the range of daily temperature variability is more than 1 C. More than 1 C. So they're sticking to the official narrative that we're at 1.2 C. But I don't know if we have like several months, like 4-5 months in a row, where we're at 1.5 C and above. I don't know where you get the 1.2 C from, but okay. It's, sorry, let me go back to this. Where is it? Okay. So this is the blue line is the forecast, but if you can see, we've already touched. It's how is this 1.7? They're saying October hit 1.7. I guess that's 1.7, but it looks like in September we actually got hotter than that. Right? Am I right? That looks like more like a 1.8, 1.9 there. Anyways, so these are the graphs I wanted to show you. What does it mean? Well, obviously it means 2C is Poppy Davis says 1.2 C is the average over the last 30 years. Okay. Is that what it is? I didn't know that's where they got that number from. Okay, that makes sense. Sure. But I mean, on some levels it makes sense. On another level, 1.2 being an average over the last 30 years doesn't necessarily indicate where we are at right now. I mean, and that's an average of the last 30 years. It doesn't indicate where we are right now. So I get the number or the number that you gave me, but it's still, that doesn't necessarily, for me, doesn't necessarily tell me much. It doesn't tell me where are we right now? What's the, and you can get a closer reading of that. I assumed 1.2 C to be the average of like, last year's temperatures or the last year, maybe in the last couple of years, right? That's what I assumed the 1.2 to be. As I said, there's so many ways to parse all the data and come up with your own answer about where we're really at. Like there are plenty of scientists and people who are very, very well versed in this stuff, and there's you'll find differing answers. You'll find a whole spectrum of answers of where we actually are from from several scientists. So I don't know. Let's see, where are we going to go next here? Quickly look at this article about lightning. $1.3 C is the average over the last 12 months. Interesting. Okay. Extratropical forests increasingly at risk due to lightning fires. Fires can be ignited by people or by natural causes, which are almost exclusively lightning strikes. Discriminating between lightning and anthropogenic fires is paramount when estimating impacts of changing socioeconomic and climatological conditions on fire activity. Here we use reference data of fire ignition locations, cause, and burned area from 7 world regions in a machine learning approach to obtain a global attribution of lightning and anthropogenic ignitions as dominant fire ignition sources. We show that 77% uncertainty expressed as one standard deviation equals 8%, so give or take 8%, of the burned area in the extratropical intact forest currently stems from lightning, and that these areas will probably experience 11 to 31% more lightning per degree of warming. Extratropical forests are of global importance for carbon storage. They currently experience high fire-related forest losses and have per unit area among the largest emissions on Earth. Future increases in lightning in intact forest may therefore compound the positive feedback loop between climate change and extratropical wildfires. There you go. All right. How y'all doing on Twitter? I can't tell who's watching on Twitter. If you're watching on Twitter, give it a like and all that kind of good stuff. If you're watching on Rockfin, give it a like and all that kind of good stuff. I don't know where all my call-in people are at, but that's all right. We started, we're not starting at the usual time today, but we're not starting at the usual time. That's okay. That's all right. Here is Christine Lagarde giving us the scoop on CBDCs. I don't know. I like digital money in the form of crypto. I don't know that I want money from a central bank that can be programmed. She looks like the lady in The Incredibles. Among other cartoon characters, but she looks kind of like the lady in The Incredibles without the glasses.
What does it mean for you? For consumers, it would be free and easy to use everywhere.
Hold on, let's start from the beginning.
The digital euro is on the move. Yesterday, the Governing Council of the ECB approved the opening of the preparation phase. It will be a journey, and we will walk the journey together with the legislator. All European institutions will be involved to make sure that Europe is equipped with the currency of the future. Cash is here to stay. You will have all options, cash and digital cash. So what does it mean for you? For consumers, it would be free and easy to use everywhere in the euro area. All of that, of course, is subject to the legislative process. Cash or digital, the choice will be yours. The digital euro is on the move.
The choice will be yours for a little while until we take the cash away. And then that's all you got is some digital money. And they are, in the U.S., they really are coming down. They're trying to come down on the crypto. And I am not a fan of the moves that the U.S. has made. Regarding that, because I do think that I'm a fan of alternative money. I'm a fan of actually what the power of the cryptocurrency. You may disagree. That's okay. Let's look at this speech from Claire Daly. Come on, Claire Daly. It's kind of a little bit slow. Sorry.
Of the unrelenting. Thanks, President. A month has elapsed since the commencement of the unrelenting mass murder of Palestinians in Gaza. It's not a spiral of violence, Frau von der Leyen. It's genocide, openly declared and carried out by the apartheid state of Israel. Starvation, bombing hospitals, ambulances, journalists, humanitarian routes. 10,000 dead. 1 in 200 Gazans killed. A Palestinian child slaughtered every 10 minutes for a month. And Frau von der Leyen's answer to this graveyard for children is to tell Israel to avoid civilians. Be as targeted as you can. Well, that displays some neck. You can't even call for it to stop. You can't even call for a ceasefire. Well, of course you can't, because these crimes against humanity are being carried out with your weapons, in your name, when you stood with Israel a month ago and you said you'd stand with them now and in the days to come. So don't come in here trying to wipe the blood off with belated concern. It's not just Israel's genocide, it's yours, and The Hague isn't good enough for you.
Next speaker.
And The Hague isn't good enough for you. True. True words. Here's Jerome Powell. Telling climate protesters, or just, wishing
the labor market
them
remains
away
tight.
into the cornfield.
Expect that the process of getting inflation sustainably down to 2% has a long way to go. The labor market remains tight, although improvements in labor supply and a gradual easing in demand continue to move it into better balance. GDP growth in the third quarter was quite strong, but like most forecasters, we expect growth to moderate in coming quarters. Of course.
Jerome Powell, by refusing to treat climate change like a systemic risk,
thank you.
You are putting us at
Thank you very much.
economic disaster.
Thank you very much.
Climate change
Yep.
will threaten
Thank you. Just close the fucking door. Close the door. Expect that the process of getting inflation sustainably down to
There you go. You know how much they're loving up on the climate change. All right, let's look at this from. No, that's not what I wanted. This is what I wanted. An article about beeswax. And all the lovely things that they're finding in the beeswax. Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. Who put the fun in fungicides? Detected in New York State beeswax. An analysis of beeswax in managed honeybee hives in New York found a wide variety of pesticide, herbicide, fungicide residues, exposing current and future generations of bees to long-term toxicity. The study, published in the Journal of Veterinary Diagnostic Investigation, or JIVD as we call it, Nojavdi, notes that people may be similarly exposed through contaminated honey, pollen, and wax and cosmetics. Though the chemicals found in wax are not beneficial to humans, the small amounts in these products are unlikely to pose a major risk to human health as compared to their impact on bees. Bees reuse wax over years, causing chemicals to accumulate, including those that are no longer in use in New York but remain in beeswax. My God. But there's no risk to human health, okay? It wouldn't build up in humans, right? If you used a lot of honey or you used a lot of beeswax. So don't you worry your little human heads over that. Because pesticides can accumulate in wax, it's important for beekeepers to keep removing old wax every few years and having the bees replace it to make sure the colonies and the bee products remain healthy. Well, there you go. Said Dr. Karen Bischoff, a veterinarian and associate professor of practice in the Department of Population Medicine and Diagnostic Sciences at the College of Veterinary Medicine and the study's lead author. Toxic residues get into beeswax from nectar and pollen of plants that have been sprayed with pesticides and from drugs and pesticides that the beekeepers apply to hives to improve bee health. Bees use wax to make combs containing cells that store their brood and honey and pollen. Toxicants, including insecticides, herbicides, and fungicides from surrounding agricultural areas, can affect the health of individual workers and brood, eggs, larvae, pupa. Healthy bees are vital to New York's economy and agriculture. The state's beekeeping industry generated close to $11 million worth of honey in 2020 and annually generates $300 million in pollination services to agriculture, according to the paper. That sounds like a lot of money. Pesticides were found in all samples of wax that was donated by hobby and commercial beekeepers and was tested. They tallied up to 34 fungicides, 33 insecticides, and 22 herbicides, with each wax sample averaging about 18 residues. Wax sent by commercial beekeepers contained the most residues, averaging 22 per sample, followed by hobbyists, 16 residues, and sideliners, 12 residues. Commercial beekeepers had the most pesticides, which makes sense because those bees are exposed to a lot of different crops, and farmers may use different pesticides for each. The most common chemicals found in 86% of the samples were acaricides, a class of insecticides which beekeepers use to protect honeybees from varroa mites. These mites are very large compared to bees, comparable to a grapefruit-sized tick on a human, and are associated with very high bee losses over winter. While varroicides are harmful to bees, they cause less harm than the parasites they are controlling. Okay. Wax on, wax off. All right. Let's look at this for a moment. What are we looking at? We're looking at this post from Sir David King. He was saying, I'm of the view that this piece from James Hansen and 17 others last week is one of the most important published on the state of the climate crisis in years. The co-authors have published a remarkably detailed analysis of global warming in the pipeline. And we've been talking a lot about this. We've been covering this for the last few weeks. This analysis of the trends in temperature and greenhouse gas levels over the past 67 million years and the last 800,000 is stark. It demonstrates that the temperature trends are closely matched by CO2 levels in the atmosphere. One conclusion is that doubling CO2 levels leads to a temperature change of 5 plus -1 degree Celsius. We are close to doubling CO2 levels today compared to pre-industrial levels. They conclude that global warming will exceed 1.5 C in the 2020s and reach 2 C before 2050. The enormity of the consequences calls for East-West cooperation in a way that meets developing world needs. Blah, blah, blah. Alongside, they say this stuff as it means something. Or like the economy is going to keep growing and developing countries need to be included in this, far out plan that we have to save the world from total disaster. And if you believe that story, it just, this is just, these talking points are get a little bit ridiculous. Alongside intervention with Earth's radiation imbalance, let's just concentrate on not killing everything. Okay, we're doing this thing where we have to make sure the developing world gets their equity and the future of the economy of the planet. Let's just make sure we don't kill everything in our path. Okay, let's just start there. And yes, it would be great. We should help everyone we can along the way, not to meet total doom and meet a horrible fate. We should do that. But let's just start with not killing everything in our path. Alongside intervention with Earth's radiation imbalance to phase down today's man-made geotransforming of Earth's climate, current political crises present an opportunity for reset. Okay, especially if younger people can grasp their situation. Alrighty. This critically important analysis needs the urgent and full attention of all climate scientists, all political leaders, and policymakers. We must all learn to pull together to create a manageable future for humanity. Well, what does that even mean? What do you mean? So Tony, Tony asked a really good question. What do you mean by close to doubling CO2 levels? CO2 itself is about 50% above. And I was thinking that too when I was reading this. We're 50% above pre-industrial. We're not at doubling. When we get there, though, it'd probably be really warm. Anyways, that's fine. I found his language he was using around that to be annoying, if not disturbing. Let's see. Got a few minutes left in the show, and we're gonna keep on keeping on. So let's listen to this from Nico House. Hold on. Hold, please. Let's see. Everything seems to be moving a little bit slow, which is kind of typical. Well, one of the reasons is because I have 18 tabs open for the show. I try not to have some. I'm doing a little, if you guys can tell that I'm doing a little different format for my show lately. And it kind of requires me to have all these tabs open. I usually don't try to have all these tabs open on my computer because if I do, everything really, really slows down like this. All right. From Nico House, let's watch this.
Israelis saying that Israel. So not only have members of the IDF admitted that they had Apache helicopters attack Israeli civilians, but there's actually video footage of it. Israel, Joe Gasson explained todo. Israeli pilots testified that it was a little bit difficult to figure out who was Hamas, who was Palestinian, who was Israeli, who was a civilian. So they just said, fuck it, and just killed everybody, which confirms other reports and testimonies that we've heard from other Israelis saying that Israeli civilians and IDF hostages were actually being killed by the IDF and not Hamas. And the order to destroy Israeli infrastructure, knowing that Israeli civilians and soldiers were in there, reportedly came from all the way at the top of the Israeli brass. This is a photo of all the cars that were destroyed by the Apache helicopters. Not even all the artillery, just the Apache helicopters that were also caught killing Israeli civilians. Now, we've been told that just about 1,400 Israelis were killed that day on October 7th, but given the photo I just showed you all, if they did that much damage to cars, how many of those 1,400 civilians were actually killed by Israeli artillery and friendly fire? And if Israel is justifying the genocide in Gaza because of civilians that Hamas was supposedly responsible for killing, and also Zionists and Israelis are cheering for this genocide because of the civilians that were supposedly killed, why don't we see the same energy from Israelis, Zionists, and the Western world in general about Israel killing its own civilians, potentially killing more Israelis than Hamas actually did because they had the artillery and firepower to do so and was clearly firing at people indiscriminately. Not to mention, Israel actually has a Hannibal policy justifying the killing of its own IDF soldiers. So I'm gonna keep it real with you. I don't want to hear that 1,400 number anymore when you all come into my mentions talking about justifying a genocide, because for all we know, the majority of those people were actually killed by Israel. Y'all don't have none of that energy for them.
All right. Good commentary there from Nico House, and we're going to listen to Scott Ritter for just a second. I think this will be the last thing I play. He's talking about the CIA working with CNN. This is from the Kim Iverson show.
Turning into news stories, planted in the international media, was called Operation Mass Appeal. At the same time, the CIA approached us and said, we want to do a documentary with CNN. This is pretty cool because the CIA is working with CNN. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. I just told you that the CIA is working with CNN to do a documentary that's designed to shape the opinion of the American people. So the CIA goes to Charles Dulfer, the deputy executive chairman, who comes to me and he says, you're the intelligence dude. You're going to work with the CIA to release information to CNN so they can do this documentary. They're going to interview you guys. They're going to package it up, spying on Saddam, and they were going to put it out there. The Inspector's Story, I think they called it. And they released it in March of 1998. The Iraqis hated it because they accused us of cooperating with the CIA. We did. But these are two giant propaganda things. The thing about Mass Appeal is that this program didn't end. I continued to work with them on Mass Appeal up until June of 1998. Later, when I went to England on the eve of the war, trying to talk to the British Parliament, they wouldn't talk. They wouldn't admit. The Blair government wouldn't admit this. So I went public about Mass Appeal. And the curious thing is, first the Brits deny it. Doesn't exist. Blah blah blah. I had too much detail though, and they finally had to admit that yes, Mass Appeal existed. But they, in typical lying fashion, said it didn't begin when Ritter said it began in November of 1997. No, it was just a one-time meeting in June of 1998. And it was only about this specific issue, and nothing happened from it. It's not a big deal. Again, they lie. That's all intelligence services do, is lie. They don't know how to tell the truth.
So the governments are, I mean, this is just like more proof that the governments are actually trying to propagandize people into believing certain things or going along with certain agendas, and agendas that are often not even, they're just agendas based on lies.
Kim, it's worse than that. And when I came back from Iraq in 2002, after briefing the parliament, I was ambushed by CNN. They were trying to embarrass me, humiliate me on Crossfire. They're at that time one of their flagship talk shows, and they had brought me on. They had two guys who were ready to take me apart for being a shill for Saddam, etc. 5 minutes before I went on air, the news broke that Saddam was allowing weapons inspectors to return to Iraq because of yours truly, and suddenly they couldn't eviscerate me. I became not a hero, but they were like, okay, so now weapons inspector, go blah blah blah. And so I got invited to CNN headquarters in Atlanta. I guess they shut that down now, so things aren't going too well for CNN. But at that time, it was their big headquarters. And I was brought in by the CEO and the whole team, and I was put in a conference room with 60 people. Wolf Blitzer was there. All the big talking heads were there. And for an hour, they grilled me like I was a witness on the witness stand. They're grilling me about my experiences. And I brought documents because I knew that, they're like, well, do you have any proof? Right, here's the proof. That's the signature. This is that. And when I finished, the CEO stood up and said, hey, Scott, guys, Scott Ritter's passed the test. He's now, you guys know him as a credible source. Feel free to use him on any of your programs. And he said, Scotty, my boy. And he took me back there because now I'm his boy, because apparently he loves me. And takes me into his war room. Now, this is early October of 2002. CNN is already working with the Pentagon to embed reporters. They have reporters being trained up to be embeds at wartime. This is October, before the official decision has been made by the president to go to war. He's still telling Congress that they're going to debate the war, that they may not do the war. The inspectors haven't returned to Iraq. CNN is working with the Pentagon to embed. They have all the war maps up there. And he's like, hey, you could be here working with us. You could help us build the war map. You can help us be this. You can help us be that. You can help us be that. And I was like, no, no, I can't. Because I went to Iraq to get weapons inspectors back in to stop this thing. But the collusion between CNN and the Pentagon, between CNN and the CIA, please listen to me when I tell you this. And I can say this about CNN. I can't say it, but I can assume that it's the same, for instance, with NBC News and others. They don't exist if the U.S. government doesn't want them to exist. They don't run a story unless the U.S. government feeds them the story. Whatever you get from CNN about Ukraine or about Israel doesn't come from a reporter, doesn't come from a newsroom. It comes from the CIA and from the Pentagon. It comes from the White House. CNN is a tool of the U.S. government. And CNN, if you're watching this, please sue me. I'd love to have the discovery on that one.
All right. Well, I mean, it's not surprising, and considering the amount of tomfoolery that went on around the Iraq War, not surprising in the least. So, but it's always good to have these like kind of eyewitness accounts of like what really happened. I was really there. I saw this thing happen with my own eyes, et cetera, et cetera. And I like Scott Ritter. I believe Scott Ritter. I believe he's a person who is interested in speaking the truth. So he does good work. That does it for me, guys. Before I go, if you like the show, if you want to support the show, if you like the show being here every day, or most every day, I try to be here every day. I can't make it all the days, but most days. You can support me at buymeacoffee.com/BlackBurnNews, Cash App at Red Llama Music, Venmo at Kevin Sandbloom, PayPal.me/Kevin Sandbloom. You can Zelle me at kevinsandbloom.protonmail.com. @protonmail.com. You can also, if you want to support the show, 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 if you want to support Support me on Patreon. And there are links if you want like a Black Bear News t-shirt or related shirts. They're on my website. The link is in the description box. So thank you all, everybody that supports the show. I appreciate you. Let me make sure I'm not missing anybody sending me any messages or support during the show if I can. But I think y'all are good. I will, you know what? I don't know about tomorrow, guys. Tomorrow may not be, there may not be a show tomorrow. It's going to be a maybe. And probably back one, I'm going to say I'll be here on Thursday. If I don't see you tomorrow, I may be doing a show tomorrow. We'll see. But thanks everyone for tuning in. I do appreciate you. As always, thank you for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. And until next time, peace.